On behalf of the Department of Medical Education, I welcome all of you for the series of workshops on new normal in medical education. This has become very important in the current situation because due to the COVID restrictions, the medical education is facing a challenging time, a challenging situation. That's why we need to adapt the available resources and technology and thereby adapt medical education to current situation and current restrictions. That's the reason that the Department of Medical Education have planned a series of workshops titled Medical Education in the New Normal. Our first workshop is related to how to make a lecture, an online lecture, interactive and engaging, because lecture being one of the commonest and most commonly utilized teaching and learning activities in the faculty. And there will be follow-up workshops that will be discussing different aspects of medical education, such as practical teaching, group discussions, clinical teaching, so on and so forth. So today's workshop will be on how to conduct an online lecture interactively and in an engaging way. And basically, during this workshop, we'll be discussing different aspects of online lecturing, and that will be mainly related to our experiences. So during the workshop, we'll be reflecting upon our experience and we'll be discussing with all of you, share the experiences and learn from everyone to how to improve our online lecturing. And there'll be some group activities also where you'll be planning and designing an interactive plan for an online lecture, interactive online lecture. So this will be the general plan of the workshop. Let's start with a brief presentation. And I welcome and thank my co-resource person, Dr. Pandula Siribaddana, who is an expert in IT and medical informatics, and he'll be my co-resource person during this session. Let's start with a brief presentation and discussion, and after that we'll be moving into a hands-on session and clarifying various issues that are related to a practical aspect, like the practical lecturing process. Okay, let's start with the very brief presentation. The objectives are basically that we need to effectively utilize the available technology. Secondly, plan an interactive online lecture. Thirdly, design instructional materials that are appropriate for an online lecture. And finally, how to conduct an interactive online session. So they will be our objectives. And regarding the first objective, because we should be able to utilize the available resources effectively, because in our setting, the state-of-the-art technology may not be always available. So we have to see how we can utilize the available technology. That is basically effective use of video conferencing, and then what are the IT requirements we need, and how can we effectively use the audio-visual facilities that we have. Let's take one by one. Now, during this workshop, we'll be taking the Zoom technology or the Zoom application as an example, because that's the most commonly used application in the faculty. And most of the basics are common to all the video conferencing applications. However, we will not be going into the basic details of Zoom application because we are very sure that all of you have very much experience related to basic aspects, like how to mute and unmute your microphone, stop and start in the videos, raise hand feature, okay, chat feature, sharing screen, breakout rooms. We'll not be going into details during this workshop because all of you have done that several times and very much familiar. However, if any of you are not familiar of any of these features, you can either ask from the chat or maybe you can contact us later. But during this time period, during this session, we'll be going into more details about the practical tips which you can use to improve your online lecturing. Okay. So we'll not be going into these basics, assuming that you are very familiar with these very simple and basic features of the Zoom application. And like desktop sharing, so on and so forth. However, again, one practical tip to start with. When you share your desktop, especially when you do a lecture, definitely, most commonly, you will be sharing your desktop with a PowerPoint presentation. One tip that we can give you is, since you are sharing your PowerPoint presentation, before you start your session, make sure that your PowerPoint presentation is open. Make sure that your PowerPoint presentation is open and it is ready to be shared. Otherwise, what will happen is, if you are going to download that PowerPoint presentation from your email, or if you go into different folders and search for them, all these will be very visible while you are sharing your screen. And that is not something that we want to have. So if you want to share the screen before you start your presentation, okay, while you are waiting and preparing for your presentation, make sure that in the desktop, your PowerPoint presentation is open. And even you can put that into the slideshow mode. That is fine. And while you are in the preparation phase, share it once and stop sharing. Share it once and stop sharing before others join it. That means next time when you start your sharing, it's ready to be shared in. Okay, there is one question coming up. Chiranti, you have raised your hand. You can comment. Chiranti, you have any comments?
I'm sorry about the interruption. I just want to clarify something with you. When we're sharing the screen, I thought only the screen that we share is seen to the other participants, and when we switch between screens, they say screen sharing post on Zoom. So I just wanted to. I was always under the impression that only the window that we have shared is seen by the others, and when we switch between screens, or when we have multiple sort of windows open that the others don't see, just wanted a clarification.
In a way, correct, Chiranti. When you click on the share screen, then you will be seeing the different screens that are available now. So what is highlighted is the screen that you are sharing. Like here, in what is shown in this shared screen, the green one. So what is highlighted will be shared. That is correct. But when you click on that, then it will be taken directly to your desktop generally. So in your desktop, usually you have to click on your PowerPoint and start that now. So during that process, if you are not ready, what will happen is the attempt that you are taking to open the PowerPoint and put that into the slideshow mode, that too will be visible. So that may not be very professional. That's what I am trying to highlight.
So you mean so that if we share the desktop instead of sharing a window, then that would be right. Okay.
Yeah, generally most will be what you are telling is correct, Chiranti. If you share the desktop, that will happen. But if you share a window, it will not happen. It will not happen. However, to share, that's what I have done here, because I have gone directly into the window. But to do that, you need a bit of technological competence. What most will do is go to the desktop, and then from there try to put the PowerPoint into the slideshow mode. So in that way, that arrow clicks might be visible. So yes, if you are sharing the window directly, no problem. But if you are opening from the desktop and then from there you are sharing, it will be visible. Have I made myself clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So So both options are there. Actually, both options are there. But if you are sharing from the desktop, be mindful of what I am telling. But so therefore, keep the PowerPoint open. Never try to open it from maybe email, because I have seen that happening. Say when people are trying to share the PowerPoint presentation. Sometimes they might go into the folders or sometimes even to the email address. So all these may not be very professional. So very simple. Even if you are not that savvy technologically, what you can do is open that PowerPoint presentation in the desktop, and when you are sharing the desktop, go into the presentation mode straight away. Okay, so good. Yeah, good question. Thank you. So those basics, those are the simple things that we want to share. All right. Then in the video conferencing application, there are different roles like the host, co-host, panelist, and the participant. So obviously the host have all the rights, basically all the rights in conducting the meeting and controlling the other participants, and co-host also have similar rights. Panelists are also, they have more privileges than participants. For example, they can share screens, they can share videos, documents without asking for permission. So there are different roles, and you need to be familiar with those roles and be familiar in how to assign the roles as well. Yeah. So that also we are not going to go into details because mostly you are familiar with most of these functions. Yeah. Very important that technical requirements, you should be able to optimize the technical requirements before you start your session. That's very important. Okay. For example, always designate a co-host or an alternative host, because if something goes wrong, then there is another person to at least to continue the session. So having more than one host is always a desirable thing, because you need a lot of support during this session, and also as a safety and backup. And also very important, everyone may not be having ideal video quality or the audio quality. So you need to adjust them. Again, when you open your Zoom application, okay, when you open your Zoom application, you can see this cogwheel kind of sign. When you click on that cogwheel sign, then it will open a window that will take you to the settings. Okay? So this also has to be done. This also has to be done before you start your session. For example, you can increase your output volume, okay, and input volume, and sometimes you may be in a place that sometimes there may be some sounds coming up. In that way, it may be possible to change. It may be possible to change some of the external sounds and minimize the external sounds. So all these small things will help to improve your presentation. Similarly, video also, you can optimize to the lighting quality that is available. Okay, so before you start your session, go to the settings and optimize the settings that are available for the presentation and the facilities that you're having. Okay, I think again, this is a simple thing to do, and we will not be going into hands-on at this moment, but if you want, while the workshop is going on, you can try yourself with your Zoom application, whether you can make those changes, like whether you can change your audio settings, video settings, so on and so forth. Yeah. IT arrangement, we need a very good internet connection, because you might have heard many times, experienced many times, when a presentation is made, if the connection is poor, then the presenter's volume or the voice is really not very pleasant. Okay, it's dragging on. So always make sure that you have very good internet connection. Something like a wire connection would be ideal. And if the connection, if you're not sure about your connection, have a backup connection as well. And it would be a good practice to join a little early so that you can check all these and make sure your computer is connected to power. Okay? Because don't rely on battery power, because if you don't remember that the batteries are low, then midway of the presentation, your computer might go off. So those small IT requirements and reasonably powered computer, all these are very important. Yeah. Dr. Pandula, if you want to make any additional suggestions while the presentation goes on, you are welcome to do so. As an IT expert, would you like to add anything here, Pandula?
Nothing major, sir. I think you covered most of it.
Yeah, thank you. And at any point, if you want to add the technical part, you can always do so.
Sure.
And any other participants, you can interrupt at any time, because this needs to be a workshop and not just talking. Yeah. So let's go on. Good. Yeah. Try to join early. Find a quiet place without interruptions and background noise. Okay. Ideally, have a plain background. Okay. We'll see what are the reasons. Ideally, have a plain background, not cluttered. Okay. Maybe white wall, or maybe a plain colored wall is very important. Okay. Not something like that. Not something that has a lot of interruptions and disturbance. Okay. This is not what we want. Sometimes we would like to use virtual backgrounds. Okay. Here also I have used a virtual background. Luckily it has worked here. Okay. Usually you need a green screen. Okay. Usually you need a green screen. But some computers, because of their settings, even with a plain background. Now here I'm not using a green screen. Okay, I'm joining from the boardroom, and we are using plain wall, so not a green screen. Chaturi, yes, please.
Yes, thank you. Coming to the backgrounds, I was thinking, Prof. Indika, now the background that we see you is also like it's our faculty premises,
Yes.
but still then we cannot see you properly with the background.
Exactly. I mean, yeah.
So
like,
it's kind of disturbing. When we want to listen to you, this backdrop is disturbing, basically. Just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, it is very rather pixelating, isn't it? The backdrop. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So we'll go into these details. Yeah. About the virtual backdrop. So here also now, when I say I move my head like this, again it's pixelating. And so one reason may be that we haven't used the green screen here. Yeah. Now. Dr. Pandula, can you explain what do you mean by a green screen and how, because you are using a better one, perhaps. Yeah. So Pandula, you are better equipped to explain.
No, it is just to say that, I mean, the green screen, obviously green and, the plain colors are the ones that you use in video, videography, in order to, if you're planning to apply a background, it's always best to have a single color in the background, and green is the preferred color. And Zoom also has that effect, and with a green screen it can define the person, it can contrast the person from the background, and it will not pixelate, as you indicate. But I think the most important thing now, why I kind of turned on my video, is just to, I'm at home, and this is my kind of the best place for me to do the session, and it's in front of a window. And so if you are doing it in daytime, if you have your window in front of you, that will clear off most of the pixelation that you see when you have a virtual background. So I just turned it on just to show that there needs to be a light source in front of you, and with that you will be contrasted with the background, and that will help in maintaining quality. Now if I kind of close the curtain and make it darker, now you can see that now I'm also appearing a little bit darker, and now it's less contrasting. But when I remove the curtain, the lighting will help me to appear better. So that's one way of improving the video quality. So over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Pandula. So
Indika, this is Indu. Can I ask?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Actually, now I feel that now that Pandula showed it very nicely. I mean, the light source should be in front of you, which makes it more appealing to the viewers. But now, when you have something behind as the backdrop. Now, in Pandula's case also, it was very nice. So now, when you have something behind, always you get attracted to that. So is it advisable to have something plain or something with light? lines or something like that, so that you don't really concentrate on the background.
Yes, it's always best to have a plain background, and perhaps something that is sometimes what happens is that if you want to represent an organization, then you have a logo or something related to that. For instance, I will change my background into sometimes it may appear differently now. So for instance, now this is one, I don't know whether you see it. This is made for a particular purpose, and similarly I think this is SLMA at once we did. Not to say that, I mean, it may be the best at any time, but you can design your own. So what I usually do is, before a session I make about 4 or 5 backgrounds and try to see like which one will contrast me better, and it may depend on the speaker's clothing, the lighting of that particular place, and so on. So it is always best to double check with multiple backgrounds and then select which one fits you best, and give your speakers, if there are multiple resource persons coming, give them also the option to choose if you wish them to have a backdrop, so they can choose the one that fits them well. And because that will depend on many factors like the clothing, lighting, and so on. What you said is correct. It's always best to have a plain background. We are just showing off, so
Yeah. So,
it's
so
very
now
nice.
we have
It's very
shown.
nice, Pandula, actually, it's very nice. So you get sort of attracted, and and your color of your shirt and the background, everything matches. Thanks. Okay.
Okay, now you can see I have changed into a plain background. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. So yes. So all these things are, so it depends on the presentation that you are doing. Sometimes we are doing an international presentation representing your institution or the country would be a good idea. And now here in this presentation also, initially I want to give that faculty feeling to those who are joining from outside the faculty. So that's the reason that I have used that virtual background. But having said that, there are many things. Now you can see what are the reasons, what are the things that you need to consider before you select a virtual background. Yeah. So green screen is ideal because that would make your virtual background better. Now you might ask where to find a green screen. Now green screen, the professional ones may be quite expensive, but sometimes you can have, say, homemade green screens also. Pandula, any ideas about homemade green screens? Sometimes even, say, your wife's sari, or if you are a lady, your own green sari might even do.
Yeah, but then it's very difficult for us to do that sometimes, because when we try to make it, the light in front will create shades, and that's sometimes what it tend to do is, ultimately you don't get the same effect as you expect. So when the light source is good, you may use anything, I suppose. But yeah.
And also the wall need to be plain without ridges and anything. The wall has to be plain. And sometimes you can use, like, say, the demi papers that are available in the bookshops. That's also maybe a cheaper alternative. Yeah. So you can experience it different types and maybe even different backgrounds. But what Indu said is here, the virtual background should not be distracting. That is very, very important. Okay. The technical quality, all these things are important considerations when you think about a virtual background. Okay. Ashwini, do you want to make a comment?
Yes, just wanted to add about the homemade background. So over the past few months, something that, so there are 2 people on Zoom screens at home. And one thing that worked for us is we have a wall designated for that, and we put a plain wallpaper. So, which is ideally suited to go on the wall, and it is green and right in front of a window. So because it wasn't very expensive, since it was just that little bit that we pasted it on, so a small sacrifice on the home decor, but it made the the background much easier to manage.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you have a good green screen, actually it would improve the quality of your virtual background. Some effects like the pixelations and these things that you see can be minimized with a good green screen and good lighting. Okay. So it's up to you to experiment and play around. Okay. Yeah. So how to do it is very simple. Go to settings, virtual background, and then select. Lighting is very important. I think Pandula has explained it very well. Okay, good lighting, very, very important. So there need to be good lighting on your face so that you can be seen clearly. Okay, and you should avoid sitting your back to a window, bright window. Okay, because there's a backlight, and also avoiding lighting directly on your head. I'll tell why it is. And also the worst thing you can do is forget about all the lighting and depend on the lighting from your computer screen. Unless you want to be seen as a character from a horror movie, don't do that. So good lighting is very important. If you have good natural lighting, that's fine. Okay, but sometimes if the natural lighting is not very good, then you can go for indoor lighting. Then you can either go for warm lighting or white lighting. Warm lighting is actually better. The yellowish lighting is better. If not, maybe white indoor lighting. Sometimes there are good illuminators which are like the round shape or circle shape like a tire, which gives equal distribution of lighting. Anyhow, lighting is very, very important. Now during this workshop also, we have got the support from the Dean's office and the AV unit to provide the lighting for us. Yeah. Again, Pandula, you want to add into this part? Regarding lighting, at home, actually, even a reading lamp would be fine. A reading lamp that is positioned maybe about, say, 1 to 2 feet distance, provided it is directly on your face and evenly lighted. Yeah, I think Pandula's face I can see very good, evenly lighted.
That's natural light. Until about 5 o'clock, I am good. After that, it did not work. So basically, I mean, what you said about that circular lights, we tend to call it TikTok lights.
Yeah.
So you can buy it cheap, and that tend to give a good lighting
Yes.
with regard to it illuminates the area consistently. So that's important.
Very important. Very good. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Here we learn from our mistakes. Yeah. Now you can see the virtual background. So now I am not using very good lighting here, and there's backlit from the the outside window, and there's no lighting on the front. So this is not very good. Okay. So this was some time ago. You can see the overseas resource persons actually they are using appropriate backdrops, appropriate virtual screens that are suitable for their skin color and the environment, so on and so forth. You can see the Australian resource person using an appropriate one. So it's not very too contrasting, not similar also. So there is not that much of pixelation. If you take the other person, maybe from Singapore, I suppose, the virtual background is quite matching to his hair color and also the clothes that the dress that he's wearing. Because if it was if the background was on blue color, then it would have been like a floating head. That's not good. So you have to really play, like Pandula said, you have to play around with the backgrounds and see what is most appropriate. Now, out of those, the Singaporean and the Australian ones seem to be quite good. And here, I don't think I am using the proper technique. So again, you have to learn from your mistakes. Okay, let's see. What has happened to Puasela here? Any guesses? He hasn't aged by 2 or 3 decades. No. What has happened to him?
It's a lighting, I think.
It's the lighting. Which kind of lighting?
Probably directly on the forehead and...
Not really. Actually, lighting from above. Can you remember?
Above,
I suggested never use lighting from above alone. Because if you have been to say SLMA auditorium, there are 2 lighting sources. One from above and from front, other one directly above. This time what has happened is, now this is not Asaila's fault, he was making the presentation, but the person was controlling the lights, has switched on only the top lighting. So the light comes directly on your head, not on your face. So that is why this effect has happened. Okay, that's one question. Okay, yeah, that's a great knowledge. Okay, good. So, yeah, so you can see why lighting is very, very important. Appearance, again, very important. Try to use formal appear. Now, previously there were jokes going around that your top part should be fine, but then the bottom part can be anything up to shorts or whatever. It's not the case, because there may be situations that you need to get up, so on and so forth. And also having the formal attire or the official attire that you'll be wearing for your work would give the perception or the feeling that you are really even though you are working from home, you are really with that environment. So always go for a formal attire, especially if you are doing a formal presentation like a lecture. Okay, formal attire. Sometimes you might want to use makeup. I mean, this is not like talking about the appearance and nicety, so on and so forth. But makeup might have a place, especially if there is artificial lighting. Then some kind of light makeup will have a place, because then the reflection from the light would be minimized. But it should not be position or standing position. What's the best way for an online lecture? What do you think?
Standing position.
Actually standing. Why?
It transmit, the body language will transmit.
I mean, when you're doing a lecture, you want to convey your body language, the hand movements, okay, and the facial expressions, okay. So all these things are important, and it gives you more confidence when you are standing up. It gives you more confidence that you are doing a formal presentation or a lecture. So, I mean, sitting in a chair on a chair is very, very comfortable and very convenient. But if you want to make your presentation effective, this should be this. But having said that, when you are making a presentation from your home, it may be difficult. Then you might have to find out a stand of adequate height, which you can make the arrangement. It's not easy. Any suggestions from your side? I haven't seen many making presentations in a standing position, but that is what is recommended. Any suggestions? Pandula?
Well, I haven't tried standing lecture.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. Yeah.
Plus, when you have only your top part formally attired, it's difficult to stand. So.
only top. So that is not the rule. That's the bottom part also should be attired. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, appropriate makeup sometimes may be necessary. Okay. Camera, very important. I'm sure most of you will be using your laptop camera, okay? Your laptop camera, and make sure that the camera is at the same height like your eyes. So you have to adjust your camera. Adjusting your camera is not a difficult thing. You can just switch on the video, and then yes, you can change the camera angle. And if the laptop screen, you can easily adjust the angle of your laptop screen by just changing the screen. Yeah. Generally, your face should be the center. Your face should be in the center, and there should be adequate space from the top, from the bottom. You might see, even if you go to newsletters of even professional organizations, nowadays, rather than putting photos of the meetings, the physical meetings, they put the photos of the virtual meeting. And sometimes you may see faces with rather, say, grotesque appearance, and then only part of the face is visible, okay? And the face is say, shaped in an abnormal way. So all these things can be avoided if you make sure that your camera is at the same height. But the problem here is generally when you sit, when you're in the seated position, your laptop camera angle is slightly below your eyes. So you might have to make some arrangement, like say, put in some books on that, so that it will be on the same level like your eye. It has several advantages. Chiranti, you want to make some comments?
No, sir, I was about to say the same thing, because instead of adjusting the flap, I have also found that elevating the laptop is what kind of gives a proper angle.
Very easy. Can be done very easily. Can be done very easily. That will give you the ideal effect, the optimum effect. Otherwise, what will happen is if you keep it as it is, and if you are in the seated position, then generally your camera is below you. So it will be like taking a selfie from below. You generally don't do that. No, you go for the best angle. So why not apply the same principle here also, get the best angle? The best angle here would be your eye level. Your eye level should be at the camera level. So the easiest would be, I agree with you, put some books. Then you can get that the correct level. And make sure that to leave some space at the bottom and the top. Okay? And I have, again, sometimes I have seen resource persons joining in tabs and phone cameras. Better not to do that. Unless you are supremely competent, better not to do that, because that will almost always lead to some problems. Okay, let's see some examples. Okay, so something like this. You adjust it so that your face is in the middle. And when you are watching, there are several layouts. Okay? When you speak, the basic layout is the active speaker, where the zoom is automatically taken or focusing towards whoever who's speaking. That always happens. That's why when during a presentation, all others need to mute their microphones and only the speaker, and others should be muting only when they are speaking. What happens is, otherwise, unless you are sharing screen, the zoom will be automatically focusing. Or the gallery view, okay? Or the minimized view, or the side by side. These are the different views that you can have while going through while watching the presentation. Okay, so this doesn't depend on the presenter. Okay, these are the different options that the viewers can take. Okay, like this. Say active speaker. This automatically happens in Zoom. So the large video window will be focusing on the current speaker. Okay? So this is always available. So like this. Now here you can see there's good video quality, good lighting quality. And when the speaker is speaking, okay, then Zoom automatically focus on this. Now I want to show this to you to show the higher technical quality even within Zoom. Now this was an international conference that was conducted using Zoom application as a platform. So with proper technology and proper resources, you can reach very high levels of audio and visuals, because definitely this looks much better than I am. Okay, so these technologies you can use and employ very easily. Pandula, you want to make any comments?
Yeah, just to add that there, I mean, here we have combined Zoom with several other technologies. So
correct, very
that
correct.
must be said. Because some of the labeling, the logos, and sometimes even streaming was done separately, but ultimately it's projected into Zoom. So there's a little bit of back-end processing going on before coming in.
Lot of processing, lot of expertise. You are correct. You are correct, Pandula. I mean, this is how we have conducted several hybrid conferences last year. As you correctly mentioned, there are many other requirements coming in, like the good video cameras, professional video cameras, good lighting, then the software has to combine all these together, like the Zoom input, camera input, audio, all this together. And it is actually like a TV production. It's like a proper TV production. So this is not something that we will be able to do during our day-to-day lectures, definitely not. But hopefully, if our AV unit and the faculty get more facilities, probably we can up the quality and standard of our presentations also. It needs a lot of work, but I think faculty also has some of the resources and the software that are required. But definitely it needs a lot more work and a lot more technical expertise. If Dakshita is there, I think he can make any comments. Can't see him. Or anyone from the AV unit are there, they can make comments. Same here. So you need a lot of other things for this kind of. Now here also you can see the main speaker view, and then the other participants are appearing like a strip in Zoom. So it's a combination of everything, and ultimately delivered through the Zoom application. Okay. So gallery view up to 25 participants. Okay, and the participants can basically click and drag into desired order. So this would be very useful if you are taking a group photograph. At the end of the conference, if you want to take a group photograph, this would be very useful. Yeah. Or you can minimize. You can, while listening to a presentation, you can even minimize and maybe attend to other work also. That's also something that is possible. Yeah. Side by side. Okay. That also could be something present. Now, what I'm seeing here on our TV screen is a side by side layout where one side would be the shared screen, other side would be the presenter view. And generally in Zoom, when you are viewing, when you view side by side, the presenter's video will appear very small. However, if you want to see it enlarged, it's a small matter of, there is a separator line. When you move your cursor around the screen, you will just near the shared screen, you will see that line, something like this, okay, something like this. And then if you move that, then basically it will take into the larger view, something side by side. So this is a very nicely done side by side. Again, like Dr. Pandula mentioned, this needs a lot of technology. Okay? So this side by side is done by the software application from the production side itself. Okay, from the hosting side itself. So it is viewed by others in this way. So this is a more professional application during a hybrid conference where the presenter is presenting and the hybrid other physical participants are viewed from the other window. So this is a professional application of the side-by-side application, side-by-side view. And like I have mentioned previously, you can watch the presentation shared screen slides at the same time the speaker. And generally the speaker looks small, but if you go to the interface between here, you might be able to, in a general one. Now this is a software-based presentation. In a general one, you can just move around and then make this one smaller and make the speaker screen larger, so that you can have an equal kind of professional looking layout and watching the presenter at the same time presentation. That's also very possible. Okay. Now here another one. All right. So here Mahesh is joining the same one, same this thing. Again, yeah. Now Mahesh we are in green here. Now at this moment, he doesn't have any problems. But could there be a danger? Anyone? Any comments?
If there's a green background?
Exactly. If it was a green background, then it would be like a floating head. Or if it was if he was using a virtual background in a green screen, what would have happened is even the computer might even recognize his green shirt as part of the green screen. So the virtual background will appear there also. So if you are using a green screen, here Mahesh will not have any problem. But if you are using a green screen, then don't wear green, because that the system or the software will recognize it as a part of the green screen. Okay. All right. So now doing lectures is difficult enough. Gaining the attention and making them without boring is difficult enough. When you do online lectures, it's even more challenging. No? Why online lectures are even more challenging to make it interactive compared to, say, virtual physical face-to-face meetings? We know the common practices, no? Why they are very difficult, more challenging to make them interacting and engaging? Any ideas? All of you have done your online lectures, no? Yeah. So you must have faced it very challenging. What were your experiences?
Because it sometimes.
Yeah, please. Sorry. Go ahead. Asel?
Yeah, it is sometimes like speaking to a wall, because we don't know what is happening on the other side.
Yeah,
whether we are penetrating and there is no response.
Yeah.
So it becomes boring for us also.
Yeah. So one way maybe, I mean, having the gallery view and asking if the participants are there, they can switch on their video. That could be one way. So there are different possibilities, but the problem that you are telling is also there. Sometimes they can say keep the Zoom on and muted, but they may not be even there near the computer. All these possibilities are there. That's why we need to make them very engaging. So we have to always interact with them. If we do a very, say, one-sided presentation, then the engagement will not be there. Okay? So you have to practice in advance. Okay? Now, do you know there is something called Zoom personal meeting room? So nowhere else. Where else can you meet you? No other place. Okay? But in Zoom, you can have a personal meeting room where you can meet yourself. So in these places, you can practice your presentation. Okay? So practicing in advance, very important. Okay? And speak clearly. Good natural face. Try to interact with the participant. But now this needs a lot of, say, competency, but important. Now, while we are making the presentation like that, you can say, okay. Now, Sahan says, they will have more distractors at home. Definitely, yes. Okay. So that's a direct message. Sorry, Sahan. Yeah. So interact with the participants during the lecture. So chat with them, discuss with them, give them resources, give them links. Okay. Answer to their questions. In that way, you are not just delivering a presentation, but you are interactive. So time to time, go to the chat and then see what they are telling. Okay. Or if there is a chat coming, you can see. So all these right throughout your presentation, interact with them. And body language, very important. That's why I again highlighted that it's better to be standing up. Okay. And find out the way that how can you keep your laptop at the position that you can deliver your presentation standing up. Eye contact. How can we establish eye contact? Now, in a lecture, we say you should maintain eye contact with everyone. Okay, everyone should be feeling that you are looking at the lecturer is looking at you. How can you make sure that you maintain eye contact? Any ideas? How can you maintain eye contact? Any simple trick?
By looking at the camera, perhaps?
Exactly. That's all. That's all you need to do. Just look at the camera. There is no other way. Just look at the camera and hope for the best. Okay. Because there is no way that you can see their eyes. No. So yes, correct, Marty. That's the only way. Always keep looking at the camera. Okay. Don't look at, say, papers and other things. If you want anything that any kind of support material, keep them also at the same line like camera, not in another place. Otherwise, you will not be able to maintain eye contact, because in this kind of one, even the others are not switching on their videos. Still, it is very important for them to feel that you are talking to them and maintaining eye contact. So that is very, very important. Okay.
Yeah, can I add something there?
Yes.
What tend to happen is that we like to look at ourselves. So when we do our Zoom sessions, we tend to look at ourselves. And now, for instance, now I'm looking at the center of the screen. I don't know whether it will be apparent. I'm looking at the center of the screen. Now I'm looking at the camera. And whether this, whether that made any change or if it is very minute, never know. But what we try to focus is now I'm actually looking at the screen, the slides or whatever that is there. So we may have to do a proactive attempt at looking at the camera during Zoom sessions. And sometimes some of the laptops, the camera is not actually on the top. It's actually on the bottom of the screen. And that kind of is a very, very difficult thing. And most of the laptops will show when the camera is on by having a light. So if you look at the light, then that will also help.
Yeah, very, very correct, Pandula. I mean, it is very subtle actually. I mean, because when you say that now we are looking at the camera and now you are looking at the center of the screen. Yes, I mean, it may not be perceived by directly, but the feeling that we get, that whether this person is looking at our eyes or whether this person is looking somewhere else, that perception comes. So that is very subtle. That's very subtle, but what you are telling is very correct. So I think here we need to be very deliberately, very purposely focused on, the camera. It's not easy. Now here, for me, even though I'm not perfect here, the job here is very easy for me because Kalpa has very kindly set kind of the video, the television monitor just behind the camera, So therefore, I don't need to look at my computer screen to see what is there. So that is very easy. In that way, I can easily maintain my gaze straight away onto the camera. So these things are not easy. It's very challenging. When you make this online presentation, try to keep it very simple, okay? And don't say too many things too quickly. And never overstuff, especially online presentation. Don't try to give too much content. And when the slide is there, never try to read everything that is there in the slide, because that is the audio visual perception. Okay, that's the visual perception. So you don't have to read everything because the audience can read what is there. Okay. Yeah. Now, education design is very, very important. Now we have basically tried to learn from our mistakes. Now the education design is very, very important. Okay. Yeah. So what we have previously gone through and what we have reflected upon is some of the errors that we might be doing inadvertently is entirely for educational purposes to learn from different areas for improvement. Okay. Now, beyond that, let's move beyond that. When we want to make a presentation interactive, okay, education design is very important. Now, many of us are very familiar about this cone of learning. Okay? Many of us are very familiar about this cone of learning. Now, what we read within few days, we'll forget and retain only 10%. What we hear, okay, we retain only 20%. So, what we hear and see, 50%. Okay. So therefore, during an online lecture, we are in a bit of an advantage platform because we can say, we can show. Okay. So all these facilities are there. If you can add what others say, maybe a bit of a discussion into your lecture, then the retention would be better. That's why a group discussion is, the retention in a group discussion is much better than a lecture. Okay. So how can we incorporate all these things? How can we incorporate all these things? The auditory part, the visual part, everything into our online lecture so that it would be more engaging and interactive. Again, the secret here is try to activate all the parts of the brain as much as possible. Okay? Going back to neurosciences, say, if you can activate your visual cortex or the auditory or even the emotional or the limbic system, okay, then it will be much easier. And then our brain's information processing and retrieval would be much faster, because when you combine all these modalities together, making connections between information becomes much easier. Okay, this is where the lesson planning comes into play. What we call Garnier's key principles. Garnier is a French psychologist who come out with basic principles in education. It's not only for online learning, but for any lesson planning, any lecture, these are important. How can we arouse the learner's interest? We have to keep them motivated. In online platform, there are many ways that we can do that. For example, maybe a video or maybe a nice photograph, okay? And clearly communicate the objectives. Okay? And we have to stimulate what they have learned previously. This also, in online format, you can do it very easily. You can get them engaged much easily, maybe through questionnaires, quizzes, so on and so forth. Okay? And provide key messages and find out whether they have learned. Again, you can have a quick assessment or a quiz, and you can discuss with them, provide feedback, get their feedback. All these possibilities are there. So, yes. So when we plan our online lecture, we need to follow these key principles and make sure that they are interactive and engaging. Okay. Pandula, would you like to add any strategies of how to do this, how to arouse learner interest, or how to clearly communicate objectives, how to stimulate prior learning? Yeah. Let's have a discussion.
Before that, sir, may I add something related to stimulating the senses when we do slides or when we do our sessions. Sometimes when we nowadays what we do is like we tend to record the Zoom sessions and make it available to the students as well. And when we do PowerPoint narratives or PowerPoint videos also, we generally, accept that having the speaker on the side of a PowerPoint, appearing in a video might not necessarily be the most effective way of delivering it. So I think in Zoom also, sometimes it may be the case as it may be, but it'll all depend on what you expect. Now, say for instance, now as I think somebody said when we discussed why we want to, why we think that standing up and doing the lecture may be the most efficient is that we tend to use gestures and we tend to kind of, do various things to attract as well as convey our message. And we lose that. We lose that as soon as we lose the line of sight, that what we do in online teaching. And therefore, that's why we do that part. But then there may be certain instances where your appearance may not necessarily add value in terms of grasping a particular message, or in certain instances. So and especially with our limited resources, where video will add to the bandwidth and sometimes make things slower, especially in the morning sessions where the learn gets stuffed out. You may not be able to project your videos, so it will be only your voice that they can hear, and therefore we should be prepared to use our voice to do what we have been using, what we have been doing with all sorts of gestures and so on. So our voice becomes the key component in conveying this message. So just to add that to the previous discussion. And yeah, you want to add anything to that?
Yes, maybe Pandula, the other areas, say, how can we get the feedback? What are the tools that we can use, like the quizzes, polls, so on and so forth? So can you give some examples?
Yes, so I'm sure many of you also use it. Generally, if I do a session with our trainers or the trainees, it's very difficult to do what we do naturally online. Especially, it's difficult to do a joke, right? You don't know whether the guys are laughing or not. So, and when you don't get a response, you do not know what to do next. And sometimes the natural things that you have been doing, you are not able to do. So instead, you use the tools that are available to you. So as you all know, there are always there is the chat that you can use. Sometimes I tend to ask the trainees, okay, can you just type your specialty on the chat so I know the the background of it? So they take a few seconds and I see a whole list of specialties appearing. It's not necessarily for me to know what the specialty that they are in. I already know because I have the list with all the names and the specialties. But that makes them interact with the system and that they become part of the system. So anything that you can do to get them involved will add value in online discussion. It may be using tools available in Zoom, or it may be tools outside of Zoom, where you can get them to do a quiz or a poll, or even in the LMS and so on. So within Zoom, you have the chat which you can use to get people to answer a particular question or to give feedback about something. But the most important thing is that you have to give time. So if you say, okay, how can we, so let me put this question to you. What sort of ways that you have used to arouse the learner's interest when you do Zoom sessions? Can you just type what you have done in a single sentence in Zoom?
Thanks, Pandula. So yeah,
so I'm actually looking at the chat now.
Yeah.
So now things are coming up.
Yeah.
Yes. Somebody said use the video clip.
Use a video clip. Yes. Yeah.
Zoom polls.
Zoom,
okay.
Yeah. Very good. Yes.
Anything else?
Polls, nice too. Yeah. questions, videos.
Ask them to explain diagram. Okay, fine. Maybe we can ask them to, give an experience that they had if they wish to share, or pose a question on the screen and then get them to, select something which A, B, C, D, type your answer. Anything will go on. But the important thing I wanted to emphasize is you may have to pause and watch the chat and let them type, because that interaction takes time. It will not be like you are doing your face-to-face sessions. The interactions will not just come up. Even in face-to-face, you know that it takes time. But in the chat, it will take even longer, because they have to type, they have to, get the sentences organized, sometimes think in Sinhala and type it in English. It takes time. So that time is an important entity. So will you be covering the polls and all later on, I suppose, no?
Yeah. So what we do is actually once this, soon after we will be moving to group work where the participants will be planning an interactive Zoom lecture session, online lecture session, not exactly the content and what they will be doing, what they will be doing to arouse the learner interest and so on and so forth. Madhuri, you have a comment?
Yes, sir, if that's all right, just very quickly. Something that I have found, I know we're getting to polls later, I found it a little bit tricky is that because the poll has to be created ahead of the teaching session, it can sometimes be difficult to pose a question via polls in a very interactive way. I personally have found that in large group teaching, 50 students, like a professorial group, that sometimes it's quite helpful to tell them as I am teaching to put any questions they have coming up in their minds into the chat rather than raising their hand and asking in between, because I find that somehow it is a little less distracting for me when it happens that way. Another thing that I have found very useful when dealing with slightly smaller groups, like groups of about 50, where I'm trying to get some interaction and there are students and I need to check that more or less all of them are participating, especially in small groups and PBLs. I generally request that they rename themselves with just the last 4 digits of the index number next to whatever their preferred name, so that then the list of names comes down sequentially in the order of the register, which makes it much easier for me to mark and also to keep a tab on, who is and is not speaking. So that's another thing that I find quite useful. And regarding use of the video, generally, I try to switch it on very briefly at the start, just so that they see me and they know whom they're with. And then, of course, I switch it off, as Dr. Pandula said, because of the bandwidth issues and all the other sort of distractions that can be occurring in my own environment, which I wouldn't want them to necessarily see. Yeah, those were the things I wanted to mention. And also just the fact that when I have very large groups, like maybe a whole batch in a lecture online on Zoom, I tend to use that function as the host of the meeting, where I actually disable the mics and the videos for just till everybody's started and settled in, because otherwise sometimes people accidentally unmuting themselves and reducing the sound quality for everybody else. And then I'm scrambling to try and make sure that I'm, muting those mics. Sometimes they have joined on smaller mobile devices and don't even realize they're unmuted. So those were just a few things I wanted to add. Thank you.
Correct, Madhuri. I mean, all these are very contextual. It depends on the context that we are working on, and there's no hard and fast uniform rule how you should conduct an online lecture. So everything that you have mentioned is correct. Yeah, when it comes to the interactivity and polls and so on and so forth, I think that's where the planning part comes in. It may not be. I mean, it's very difficult to come out with a quiz simultaneously and spontaneously. So that is where you need to design your lesson well in advance. So that's what we will be doing in a little while. Pandula, you want to add into that?
Yeah, something with regard to doing the session as well as following the chat. It's very difficult. because sometimes you don't tend to notice there is a message in the chat, and that will be done. So it's always good to have ground rules where the questions will be answered and so on. Another thing that you can do actually is to have a student or two following the chat, and you can probably take turns in this instance. Everyone may not get the chance, but let the students themselves summarize and pose questions, one to collect everything, and then later on develop that discussion on behalf of you. So you are actually making them also interactive. It may work well with a smaller group, but even with a larger group, sometimes it may be helpful when you have a deputy who's looking at the chat. So that also will be a option that you have.
Correct, Pandula. I mean, even though one of the ministers said that one person will be able to conduct online class for whole country, I mean, for a single teacher to conduct one class is not easy. Actually, ideally, you need few people, someone to support and host, so on and so forth, because you need to be really, really competent to manage the hosting part and the chat part and the conducting. I mean, you can do that, but you have to be really IT savvy and very, very competent in these to conduct all these things together. So correct. I mean, it's not an easy thing, it's challenging. So those are the skills that we need to develop. Yeah. Madhuri, you want to make another comment?
Sir, I just wanted to ask you what your views were on sort of slide, PowerPoint slides and backgrounds and things, because having followed a series of lectures personally as a student, my observation was that because we are viewing these slides now on an electronic screen, that much more nuance and detail in the background was clearly visible without detracting from the slide. And essentially, back in the days where we projected via a projector, multimedia projector in a lecture hall, and we were very careful to keep the contrast very high with the words and the background, and to have the background very plain and all of that. I felt that maybe when you're actually using Zoom, your slides can be a little bit more interesting or a little bit more colorful, because they are still very clearly visible, and depending on your device, either you're seeing it on a full laptop screen, or you can enlarge on your tab or phone and so on. I was just wondering what your views were on that.
Yes and no, Madhuri. I would still say message is what is very important. I mean, we have to convey the message directly, because even though the clarity, the IT clarity, true that, I mean, the information technology and the Zoom application, that will give you a lot more facilities compared to some physical lectures. That is correct. But having said that, they have to get that message within short time. No, even here also we are changing slides in the same speed. So in that way, I suppose, yes, you need to keep your slides interesting, correct? But you should not necessarily complicated, because you have to give the message simply.
Yes.
And online learning, I think the attention span is even lower. So therefore, there's now Chiranti, you say they prefer a white background. So that is something that is recommended in most times, because again, I mean, the noise of the information, that's also we need to avoid. We have to focus on the message that we need to give. Pandula, you want to add? Oh, Chiranti, anyone? That's what I feel. I mean, keep it simple. Make it interesting, but keep it simple.
I also think so. Although what Ramanthi said is right, because now we are looking at it in a digital screen, there is more facility for us to do certain things, which will add color and contrast to it. But all will go with this theory of cognitive load. And that basically refers to the amount of information that we can hold at any given time while processing certain parts of it. So what you basically add with, say, if you have multiple colors, all that will be, perceived through the visual sensors. And when you have voice, that also gets carried in through your auditory sensors. And when you say, for instance, say, if you add a rabbit's image into that particular slide, it looks colorful, but that adds to the visual load that you're having. So what ultimately it does is, now you have relevant information in your working memory, and a not so relevant information also in that working memory. So, theoretically speaking, you are limiting your capacity to process, and therefore it's always best to avoid that kind of things unless they are with a focus. That means that there's relevancy to that. And this is the same reason that sometimes when you say, for instance, if you're projecting a skull in your slide, and it'll be difficult. I was looking for a slide to show, but it'll be difficult for the person who's looking at it and visualizing it if you label the skull A, B, C, D and put the list somewhere else, right? So if you label the different parts in the skull itself, that will be easier to comprehend. The reason being then there's less amount of work for the user to do or the listener to do. So as teachers, when we do develop in this instructional material, these are general principles that we adhere, whether you project it through a overhead projector or whether you develop slides for the digital screens. But definitely there are more features that you can do. Certain rules may not really apply. If you really making slides for screen viewing, you would probably need not to apply to these rules of the font size to that extent, because you can accommodate more content in that regard.
So this is in education term, this is what we call a cognitive load. You have to be mindful of the cognitive load that we are giving to the students, and there is a limit that there's a simple saying in the past that at a given time human mind can take up up to 6 to 8 points. That was something that was pointed out long ago. So the cognitive load is very important. So therefore I think keep the message very clear. Chiranti, you also want to make a comment?
Yes, just one thing about the background is it was actually feedback that I got from students, because I have been using earlier I used to use black backgrounds with white or yellow letters, and in one of the formal feedbacks they had said that they prefer the white background. So because of that I switched. And the other thing what I found is that a lot of our students still use mobile phones even to sort of join in Zoom lectures. So I always try to keep the number of points and the sentences really small and the letters as big as possible. And about using, I don't know whether it's sort of correct or not, but about using images and things like that, I sometimes tend to use images when I, for example, ask a question and whether I want them to really apply something, a basic principle that I've described before. I sometimes use emojis of a person thinking or a question mark or something like that when I want to evoke that kind of a reaction from them.
Correct. Yeah. And now you said that most of them are using mobile screens. Yeah. Another key rule is, even when you are making slide, keep it simple and keep the text limited, because sometimes you have to be mindful that if you keep your sentences very long, they may be cut off from the screen. So all these simple practical things are there. And what you said about the white background, so that is what recommendation says actually. The general recommendation using the video conferencing needs to go for a white background, because there's enough color can be added in other ways. General recommendation is to use a white background. That is correct. So we need to follow these, the different educational principles. And then the FAIR principle, where we have to give feedback in many different ways, in the chat, or maybe by asking quizzes and activities. So all these things are very important, and relevance of what they are learning. All right. And when it comes to relevance, especially when we are in the medical field and in medical education, a clinical case scenario. A case scenario or a story to start with would be an ideal way. Could be a video, could be a photograph, or could be even a written case with pictures. So this could be something to generate generate interest and give the relevance. Yeah, Joel, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, so this is about the white background. For the general presentation also, do you recommend white background?
Not exactly, Joel. It depends on the situation. It depends on the lecture hall that you are using. It depends on the background that you are using. For example, if you are presenting directly onto a wall and if the wall is white, then
Yes,
your slide
correct.
will not be differentiated. So, in a general
Yeah,
rule
correct.
is, I mean, just to add few more, the general rule is if the lecture hall is well illuminated, go for darker. If the lecture hall is dark, go for white background. And it depends on
Yeah.
many other factors. So you have to match all these things. Even your attire, sometimes you might have to consider. So it's not always the same. It depends. Here also, it may vary, especially in your Zoom platform, if you are using a different, say, different backdrop for that one, using different maybe technologies, then in that case, again, your background color may vary. It varies, but general rule, simpler the better. Simpler the better. Yeah. So these are the simple rules. Simple site design, minimal animated text. Okay, and use large fonts. Use large fonts. The general rule is when you look at the slides in the slide sorter view, if you can read them, that means that should be adequate. So generally about 6 points, per slide maximum, and make sure that only the main points are shown. Okay. Visual images, again, here also of high quality, good resolution, okay, good reinforced screen text. So, and that should emphasize the main points. Like Pandula said, the rabbits and maybe cats may be very lovely, but they might not emphasize the message. Research presentation, again, whenever possible, go for graphs, not tables. Whenever possible, go for graphs. But having said that, that too should not be New York skyline timetable kind of graphs, because in online presentation, especially within the limited time available, the information that can be graphs is very limited. Okay, I think we have come to the end of the time that is allocated. We want to have a group activity session also, but with the time that is there, and we had actually very good discussion related to those.
So before, yeah, I have a slide that I can show, if I may show.
Please do, yeah. So,
just one.
I mean, apart from the group activity, maybe we'll omit the group activity because we had a good discussion and clarified our doubts. So maybe we'll spend next 5 to 10 minutes maximum to clarify further doubts, and also, Dr. Pandula, you can provide your inputs. Over to you. You can share your screen.
I seems to have a bit of an issue sharing. You may have to stop, so I don't know.
I'll stop sharing. Yeah, you can.
Seeing my slide section. Well, this is what you said not to do. Because I am not seeing my specific slide, I may have to share the desktops, right? So
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to say, but I recently upgraded my thing, so it seems like it doesn't. There is some sort of an issue that does not actually allow me to share. So, not sure whether it's due to the Zoom or. Sorry, sir, but I don't think I can share. I just upgraded, so I think there is an issue in the sharing. We have to skip that. Just wanted to,
you can just say, provide your inputs, Pandula, in that case. That's fine.
Yeah, no, this is with regard to the same thing on having different images. So when I said that use images sparingly, that was actually referring to using irrelevant images, like say for instance for design purposes or for other purpose. Otherwise, if you basically use images to explain certain concept, I think that's perfectly fine, and that basically generates enthusiasm, and you can actually generate discussion rather than putting things straight in as text. You can actually generate more discussions when you put things indirectly based on things that students generally see everyday life, so that they will think around and they will themselves ultimately come up with an answer. So I just wanted to show what I meant, but anyway, technical issues can come. This is also something we need to keep in mind. Things will not always work.
Yeah, that you have to be always mindful that technology will not work all the time. There will be problems every time. There will be problems, so you have to be ready. So that could be another take-home message, that there could be situations where everything will not go correct in the way that you have planned. So you need to have backup plans as well. Okay, so we'll spend this last few minutes to clarify maybe any more comments or any suggestions, clarifications from any of you.
May I ask a question, please? This is
Please, yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, I have never shared or played video clips in my Zoom teaching sessions, simply because I've not been sure that they wouldn't get stuck, etc. Could you advise on that, or is there a way to sort of pre-run it? I don't know, with just myself in a meeting to see if it works, or it's something I wanted to do and hesitated to because I've not been sure of how to do it.
You can use videos, but you can use videos. You can embed them into your PowerPoint, or you can directly play them. Both are possible. Or you can play it from a link. All these possibilities are there, and it will work. Only thing is, I mean, beforehand, if you do it and try it out, that would be great. But it's doable. Pandula, I think you can provide more technically sound advice.
Yes. So videos, it's best if you are doing a PowerPoint, embed the video within the PowerPoint itself. So that's the easiest thing that you can do. Otherwise, you have to go back and forth and do it. If it plays on your desktop, it will play in, it will appear on your Zoom as well if you are able to share. So there's no worry in that. But the only worry is that there may be a gap or slight delays in terms of how the video play. It will not be very smooth as you see it in your own desktop. So there may be slight, jumps the viewer on the other side might see, but always you can, it won't be that much of an issue. But there are other softwares that we tend to use to stream a video directly, so that it will be as smooth as you see in on your desktop. But for our purposes, embedding the video into your PowerPoint itself and using a quality which is less than the high, whatever the high density, high resolution that the video may be. So a lesser quality video may play better than a high quality video, and it may give you less trouble also with the bandwidth.
Right. And do I need to adjust the audio settings in some way on my?
No, when you're sharing, in the place where you select different screens, at the bottom you have a checkbox to select that says share audio. So only if you click that the video will play and the listeners will hear its audio. So otherwise they will only see the video part of it,
Dr.
not
Pandula,
the audio.
Thank you. Dr. Pandula, is that setting, when I set up the meeting at the beginning?
No. At the point where you share the screen.
At the point when I share the screen. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Ashwini, you have a comment, no? Dr. Ashwini, and
just to mention that sometimes I do have trouble sharing even the embedded videos for just the reasons that Pandula said. So as a backup, what I do is, if it's a video that's available on YouTube, I have the link available as well, and I copy it onto the chat box rather than have it on my slide, right? Because the students can't click the slide and go to the video, but they can copy it off the chat box or click it from the chat box and access the video on YouTube. And then I say, okay, you've got so the video is about 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever. And I say, okay, take 2 minutes and watch this video, and we will discuss it once you're back. And so in the absence of sophisticated software, that is what I find helpful.
Yeah. So yes, I mean that could be one easier way. And chatbot, I mean the simple feature of the chat box we can use innovatively and make it interactive. Like you can use the chatbot to chat box to message the students, share documents, share links, share resources. So all these are possible actually. So with good planning, very good interactive could be maintained. Only thing is it actually calls for a different set of skills. Different set of skills compared to delivering a lecture. So that is something that we need to learn. Yeah. So it's possible. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Any comments? Joel, your hand is up.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
So what about now having a lot of sentences on a slide is not good. That's obvious. What about now if you want to try to explain a clinical things, and if you just show image and keep on talking, what is your opinion on that?
Using an image to start with. I mean, if you go back to that the Garnier's principle, the first step in good lesson is generating interest. So there you can start with maybe a photograph. So starting with a photograph or showing a photograph would be a good idea. Actually, it's actually kind of advisable and desirable to start with maybe a short video clip, not very long, or maybe a photograph. That is fine.
Right, but at least the viewers may expect some slides with some words, isn't it? In the subsequent
subsequently
things,
yes, subsequently, yeah. So I mean that you need to plan your lesson. So starting point can be a slide, but later the text can come in. Yes.
Yeah, what I feel is when you do a thing to medical students, I think what they are interested finally is in the content of the lecture rather than how we tell them.
They are interested.
That's what
They are interested in.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, that is generally they are very much interested in content. At the same time, I mean, it all depends on where we assess also. If we assess content, obviously they will be focusing on content.
Yeah, correct.
So it depends on the way, our approach to education as well. Yes.
Yeah, correct.
Pandula, you want to show some of the slides? I mean, I don't think we can show everything, but if there are
that's the thing. So I was just wanting to show this video. Just I mean, when I play this, just see whether there is a break or if there is a thing. I will show it for a few seconds and I'll off it and then we'll have a chat.
Supervise the meals which are served at cost and will compare with the best of urban restaurant fare. Lunchrooms and food wagons are conveniently placed all over the 87-acre plant.
Okay. Was that clear, or what's your feedback on that video?
Ashwini says there are breaks, the lag time. It breaks, no? The video breaks and there's a lag time also.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it plays very smoothly in my computer. This is what happens when you have videos. There will be a little bit of a lag to the viewers, but you don't see it in your computer. Generally, when you have a quality somewhere around 720 or HD, that should work fine. But even then, you will have these breaks noted. So the only way to do that is to stream the video directly as a stream through Zoom. That's doable, but for that you need an external technology to do that. And with that, of course, it will be very much clearer and very effective. The other, some of the things that I was talking about in terms of content previously. Sorry, are you hearing me? There was an internet.
Yes, yes, can hear.
Prof, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, can hear. We can hear you, Pandula.
Prof, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Prof, Indika. Yeah, suddenly it went off. I don't know which may, that might. Okay. Can you see this particular slide?
You are starting to share screen. There's a delay, but we have started to share the screen. We can see that.
Hello, can you see? I will. Okay. So you're seeing these two frogs, right? Can you see the two frogs?
Yes.
We can. Yes. But not the video.
Right. You should be able to see me better, I suppose. See the screens better now. Can you see the two frogs?
Yes. Can you?
Okay. So basically, I mean, when you present things, there are certain subtle things that you can do in order to, make life simple to the listeners or to the students. Like for instance, is one example. We talk about the ear of a frog and its importance of where it is being located. But the missing part is we haven't mentioned where the ear is. So basically, in order to make this slide more effective, we have to point it out. So this is just to say that when we use diagrams, images, or whatever, it is always important for us to think what are the information the user now wants in order to comprehend this particular message. Now, when you have two vital information in two different places, that can generate a thing called a split attention effect. And how we avoid that is to bring those two closer. So similar things can be done in our slides also, and that's why we tend to label things close by, although it can be cluttering. Now, this is one example where we number and then put the list on the side, but it is more easier when you mark it on the image itself. So these are the things that you can do to minimize the cognitive load and thereby help the users.
Question is that you position them in an appropriate way that it gives a message. The juxtapositioning, that's another important principle in instructional material development. All these are very, very important things. So everything taken together, the key message that we can give today is that it's the educational design and planning that matters. When it comes to conducting a very good, engaging, interactive lecture, what really matters is actually the design part. Design how you start your presentation, how you generate interest. Just remember the Gardner's principles. How can you generate interest? How can you provide what are the objectives that are expected? And then how can you provide the content without cognitive overloading and plan juxtaposition? How can we make them interact with them, and how to provide feedback, how to get them active, all these things, I suppose, has to be planned. So therefore, lesson planning is very important. It is not just preparing a PowerPoint and then basically arrange the Zoom meeting and uploading and making the presentation. It is not that. A lot of planning goes beforehand in making a lecture or an online presentation interactive. I think that should be the take-home message from today's session. Pandula, you want to add before we conclude?
Yeah, I mean, it is only to say that we all have the flexibility to innovate, and there may be multiple ways of doing things, and every day there are new tools that are being introduced. So if you Google in in relation to anything on tips and tricks and how to get people engaged, there are new information coming out every day, and that's something that I try to do always whenever I'm discussing a new topic or something, where I try to learn from those who have already done it. And I think that's the best way to do it. And even in this instance, I think you yourself might have a lot of experience in terms of doing various things to get the attention and get people in, although unfortunately we were not able to have that discussion as we expected. But it's always a changing, technology, changing means of doing education, and we also have to adapt as it comes, I suppose.
Correct. I mean, that's the very reason that during the early part of this discussion, we were reflecting upon the mistakes that we have done and learn from them, because all of us are actually learning. This is a new thing, and all of us are learning. Having said that, the education principles stand. So what is important is to go by the education principles, but rest actually you can learn. It's up to you to innovate and learn and find out new pathways. So ultimately, again, the take-home message, the most important is find out, decide what you want to teach, the objectives, and then design appropriately to deliver it effectively and interactively. Okay. With that, we come to the end of this workshop, the first workshop, and this will be followed up by a series of another workshop also. And I thank all of you. I thank all of you for this very active presentation. And everything that we have discussed today are educational purposes only and for our own development. And I thank everyone again for the active participation. And I also thank the Department of Medical Education for their support in organizing, the staff of the department, and also from the Dean's Office, Mr. Kalpa Pereira, and the AV unit, Dr. Dakshita, as well as the staff, Mr. Chandrakumar and others, everyone who has helped us so much to make this workshop a success. With that, we conclude the workshop and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.